Fortnite's reality augments were introduced with Chapter 4, but ever since Chapter 5, they have absolutely gone by the wayside and seemingly have been forgotten about. And there is absolutely no signs of them ever coming back. We may never see reality augments ever in Fortnite. So today we are going to revisit some of those augments that stood above the rest and were absolute must picks in your augment selection. If you guys go on to enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like. Let me know in the comment section if you would like to see me revisit some of Fortnite's worst augments or rank every single augment. Be sure to use code TYFRYZ in the Fortnite item shop, and let's just get right into this. Firstly, we gotta have a talk about the exotic grab bag, and this augment really peaked during the whole heisted event where we got all the heisted exotic weapons. Of course, the Maven, heavy shotgun, twin mag SMG, P90, you know what I'm talking about, those exotic weapons. And all you would do is you'd pop this augment and it would drop one of those exotic weapons right in front of you. Now, I'm not entirely sure how this augment worked once the event was over. Either they vaulted the augment or it would just give you a random exotic in the history of Fortnite. I'm not entirely sure. But the main thing that's important here is, let's be honest, every single one of those exotics is really good. Like, the heisted exotics are absolutely some of the best, and so you're never going to complain really when you get one unless you have your like god tier loadout set up. All of these weapons had really special abilities and each was unique in their own way, and I think this is a really good augment to have, especially if you're lucky enough to get it early game and get, let's say, the Maven early game. You're totally set. I definitely believe this is one of the best augments of all time. But again, you always have to keep in the back of your mind, these RNG total luck augments are kind of tough to rank because depending on what you get, they can either be really good or really bad. But in this situation, I feel like any weapon you get is relatively decent. Next, we got to talk about one of the OG augments from Chapter 4 Season 1, that is Stormmark. And I really do think that this is an augment that a lot of people are expecting to see on this list. And if I remember correctly, the way this augment worked is every single time the storm closed in, it would mark the people around you, right? With that like same red mark above their head, like if you were using the shadow tracker pistol, for example, or like the flare gun. You get what I'm saying. But this augment really excelled in late game, and that makes sense, right? As the storm gets smaller, this would be more useful because 99% of the time you are going to mark more people. So think about how often the zone closes in, right? Especially when it gets to those small zones where it's like every minute and a half, you are getting a free mark of where every single person left in the game is. That is like extremely invaluable, honestly, in the end game. I can't really explain it. To know the exact location of where everyone is, there's 4 people left, right? You know where everyone is behind any wall, in a bush, in the air above you. It doesn't matter. You know exactly where they are. That gives you such an advantage in any gunfight in endgame. For me, this was one of those augments that was an immediate take every single time. If I saw Stormmark, I'm pressing RT and using that augment every single time. There should be no arguments here. Stormmark absolutely deserves to be on this list. And another augment that I believe deserves to be on this list, and another OG augment, is Bush Warrior. And this augment was incredibly strong for multiple reasons. So if you don't know what Bush Warrior does, you would regenerate all your health and partial shields. I believe it was up to 50 shield by standing in large foliage or just basically bushes. And I'm seriously telling you guys, on that Chapter 4 map, it feels like there was a bush around every single part of the map. I mean, there were bushes everywhere. The only thing that I don't like about this augment is it promotes a way of playing that I don't really like. People just sitting in bushes, camping, hiding, right? And in fairness, if you have the augment, why wouldn't you? You just get free health and shield. And think about it. I mean, up to 150 is insane, right? You get cracked down to 2 HP, just sit in a bush for about 10 seconds, and this thing regenerated crazy fast all the way up to 150. Don't have to use any shield, don't have to use any white heals, just sit there and you're good. And of course, you're in a bush, right? So you're not really gonna get shot at all, right? Like, you're not gonna get hit in the bush. The main problem with this augment, of course, is towards the end game when the zone gets smaller and you're confined to a smaller part of the map, this augment can become useless as there's probably just going to be less foliage in the area for you to hide in. But besides that, this augment is incredibly strong and certainly should be on this list. Next is an augment that many people do consider to be the best augment, and I would actually probably agree with that statement. That's Aerialist. And it was a very simple augment. It would just give you glider redeploy whenever you wanted. And this is crazy strong for several different reasons. For one, it essentially just canceled out all fall damage for yourself for the rest of the game. You are not going to take fall damage as long as you have somewhat half of a brain. You also really had infinite mobility for the entire rest of the game as well. Just build up 4, 5, 6 stairs, jump off, glider redeploy, you're good. You're just sailing the zone. You also had another really good strategy for attacking players. I remember the OG strat with this was kinetic blade into the air a couple times and just aerialist. You could literally traverse like over entire POIs with that. Combine it with shockwave grenades, shockwave hammers, shockwave bows, any of that stuff. This was an elite augment. And I honestly don't really have much else to say about it. I mean, it gave you glider redeploy. You guys know all the benefits that come with that. There is literally almost no downside to taking this augment. This is one of those augments that you see and you say, why not? I have to take this. And yeah, I do actually think it is the best augment of all time. I think some people will agree with that, but maybe some of you might disagree, and you might see another augment on this list that may take that #1 spot. And I think that augment for a lot of people is First Shotgun, introduced in Chapter 4, Season 4. And this augment essentially gave you extra damage on a first shotgun shot. And this is really useful for a couple of pretty obvious reasons, let's be honest. I would say 99% of players in a Fortnite lobby are carrying a shotgun, so for 99% of players, this is a great augment to have. As well as that, I would say shotguns are probably the most used item in Fortnite's history. I mean, everybody uses shotguns there in every single fight. I mean, you have to have a shotgun, right? You know, this brings up a good point too, because there's a couple like really good sniper augments, right? But how often are you really going to need a sniper augment, right? Not really a ton of times, but for a shotgun augment, yeah, you'll take that 10 out of 10 times because you're always using it. And anything that gives you increased damage on a shotgun, you best believe I am taking that every single time. There's no debate. And this is one of those augments that just feels like a no-brainer to use, right? Like, why would you not use this augment? I can't think of a reason, unless, of course, you're not using a shotgun. Which, in that case, I think you might need to talk to somebody. It's important to note here, though, that it does not increase the maximum headshot damage, so you can't get higher than what the max damage for that shotgun is already prior to popping that augment, if that makes sense. It's almost just like using the prime shotgun, having that effect. If you remember, as long as the mag was full, you were doing a bonus damage. It's that exact same thing, but just apply it to every single shotgun now. I remember it being especially powerful with the Heisted Breacher and the Kit's Charge Shotgun. And like I said earlier, anything that gives you bonus shotgun damage is automatically one of the best augments, and that is definitely the case here with this. And next, we have to talk about one that's a little bit confusing and maybe a little controversial. That's Keymaster. This is an interesting augment, and depending on who the player is, can either be really good or totally useless. And as the name of this augment suggests, it would just drop you 2 keys to use at hollow chests, if you guys remember those. And hollow chests were really good, and I guess it's kind of luck, right? What is displayed in the hollow chest. There's no like specific rotation to what weapons are in what section of the hollow chest. It was always, if I remember correctly, there was a section sometimes for exotics, which would use 2 keys, and then there was sometimes one for heals, and then normally a purple and legendary. If I remember correctly, obviously it's kind of a jumble in my head right now while I record this. And this is just one of those augments that kind of depends on luck, right? If you pop Keymaster, right, you get 2 keys, you go to the hollow chest, and there is a purple Havoc shotgun and a gold twin mag SMG. Well, this is an incredible augment. You just went crazy. But on the other hand, if you go there and there's like a sharp tooth shotgun and a DMR, like, is it really that good? I don't think so. But I think it deserves a spot on this list because, at least for me, I found more often than not that there were good weapons in these hollow chests, and it was worth popping this augment. Another problem that kind of arises with this is that it's one of those augments that is kind of like a one and done deal, right? With Aerialist, you have it for the whole game, or with First Shotgun, you have it for every single shotgun shot for the rest of the game. But with Keymaster, it's just 2 keys and that's it. That's the augment spot gone. It's the same thing, of course, with Exotic Grab Bag. So I think the usefulness of this augment really is determined by the player. But I mean, I think it deserves a spot on this list. Hollow chests were really good, and I think they should come back, honestly. And the final augment that I have on this list, and I honestly totally forgot this existed, that's Tracker's Armory. And Tracker's Armory was simple. It would just drop you a Shadow Tracker pistol and a flare gun. And as you guys know, in my videos, I typically like to throw in one take that I don't think people are going to expect, that's a little more of a kind of controversial take, and this is my one for this list. But I think the Shadow Tracker pistol in the right hands is unbelievable. I remember watching Zemi especially use this thing, and it was just like, he was outgunning everybody at any range. The Shadow Tracker is arguably a top 3, top 5 exotic ever, and the flare gun is a really good utility item, of course, that you just shoot it in the air and it will mark anybody in the vicinity. Again, this is one of those augments that really depends on the player, right? If you are really good with the Shadow Tracker pistol, just shoot that flare gun in the air and you can absolutely go ham. But if you don't find yourself really loving to use pistols, this augment is not going to be for you. But I think that the Shadow Shadow Tracker pistol is so good that it is worth popping the augment just for that, and then you get the flare gun kind of as a bonus, right? Honestly, I was really between this augment or Mythic Munitions, which I believe just popped you a Mythic Tactical Pistol, which was also a really strong pistol, so it's kind of between the two pistol augments. But I do believe that this augment is really good, especially in the right hands, and it should be on this list. Alright guys, that is my revisitation for some of Fortnite's best augments. Now, there are literally like 80, 90 augments, so this is super hard to pick out like 7 or 8 of them that are the best. And I absolutely know that I missed out on some really good ones like Zero Chance or Danger Hero, so let me know in the comments below if you would like to see a part 2 to this video, or if you would like to see me go on the other side of the spectrum and revisit some of the worst augments, because that list might honestly be even harder to make than this list because there are so many bad augments. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.